This will be a tour of two-stroke engine. That's all it's doing. And in fact, it's doing the opposite. It's letting more air in than fuel. It's opening up. So essentially when you first go the next thing I want to talk about is the intake. As you can see on this one here, you've got this little block. Carburetor hooks up to a little block there. And I want to show you something else. On this bike over here, there's no block, it's a straight pipe. So, essentially for the two-stroke, there's 3 basic types. One's very rare though. One's called a rotary valve, and I'm not going to go over that one. So these two are the two that I have, which one is called the reed valve intake and the piston port. Now the piston port is exactly what you see. It's just a straight pipe. It just sucks gas into the engine and that's it. There's nothing else there. It's that simple. The reeds are trying to tune the intake a little bit better, and they're trying to adjust the amount of fuel that comes in. And this here is reeds. These ones are dual stage reeds. These ones here, dual stage reeds, open here and they open here. And as the engine revs up more, that dictates how these open up, either wider or slower, and they vibrate. So as the engine goes up and down. So these can break, but they regulate gas flow, and you can buy different ones with different tensions. Like these are dual stage. You can buy singles, which are just one. But they're supposed to help increase and tune the bike for different performance, high, low RPM, high RPM, throttle response, things like that. But anyhow, your gas comes in through here. Usually how you check if these are bad, one way is you can just hold them to light and see if there's any gaps. But this is reeds. The next thing, before we go into the engine, let's talk about cooling. As you can see here, this bike is what we'd call liquid cooled. It's got hoses, it's got it's got radiators. So essentially the bike, what happens is, in here, there's a little propeller in here that's hooked up to the crank. And as you rev your bike, it spins. And pumps the water throughout the whole thing. This bike is air cooled, has these big fins, and these big fins, as you ride, cool down the bike. These water cooled bikes, whenever they cool down, they still are somewhat air cooled, and that's because these radiators have fins here, and air goes over these radiators. So water cooled bikes can overheat, and when they overheat, this water here gets so hot that it starts steaming out of here, starts going out the overflow because there's too much pressure in there. So a lot of times you need to put a fan. If you like to go real slow, you put a fan on these bikes, or you just gotta be careful. So I mean, any bike can overheat, even the water cooled bikes, because even the water cooled, the liquid's getting cooled down by these air on these fins. So you just got 2 radiators. You need to get the air circulating through here instead of circulating through the fins. And here's a radiator, as you can see. It does have little fins on it, this particular one, to cool down the liquid as it's going through the radiator. So this is a water-cooled cylinder. As you can see, you got pockets in here, and you just need to have a head gasket. The newer bikes a lot of times have O-rings, just put an O-ring in here and it seals the water from leaking in. This one here doesn't have that, but this one here is an air-cooled cylinder. Up close. So what goes on inside this cylinder? So you have ports on the side that suck in the gas. As you can see, where the reeds go here, sucks in the gas. And then on this side you have the exhaust that blows it out. And as you can see, the exhaust ports and the intake ports are not the same location. As you can see, the exhaust port's higher and the intake is lower. So piston comes down to the intake. And here's a piston. This here. This piston. There is this here, which is the wrist pin bearing. This is the wrist pin. This is the piston. Brand new. So this here is CR500. This one here is KTM 495. So the piston, this is way bigger, but the piston slides in and out, up and down in there, and there's rings. Is the crank. Your piston is connected onto the end of this. This, as your piston fires, moves this in a circle. And this is how the bike makes its power. I have other videos on how to look at the power output, how to translate all that stuff. So that's not going to be covered in this video. This is just the mechanics of it. On one side of this will go a gear to turn the clutch. The other side of this goes the electronics that power the spark. So on the top of this whole thing is a spark. You time this to fire the spark at a certain time. Usually when the piston is almost at top center, it sparks it, it combusts it. As it goes up, compresses it, and then pushes it back down and makes the power. And that's done by spinning the magneto to generate the power. And that's why you kick it. And you have to kick it hard to get the power to get the spark to start, to get the gas to fire and get this to move. Okay, so we're going to continue the tour. I'm going to show you the electronics. So there's different kinds. This is a motoplate. There's what's called inner rotors, which essentially this magnetic rotor spins on the inside, and these wire windings and generates spark. It generates electricity that can go to the coil to generate the spark. This is the coil. And this goes to your spark plug to generate spark. Now, sometimes these have multiple connections. This one here just has two to go to there, but sometimes you have a third one that goes to lighting. These ones here, the inner rotor ones, these are less weight, and these can spin up faster. The other ones are called flywheels, and they have flywheel weights. You can add weights to this as well, but there's ones that actually are big and they cover the whole outside, and those ones have more weight, so they're slower to spin up, but once they start spinning they're harder to stop. So when you need momentum to go up a hill climb, the bigger, heavier flywheels are going to help you. In fact, if you've heard of Trowel's bikes, they usually have monster flywheels.